Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like you can just feel like, oh, good.
Good to see you.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming.
We'd like to get started, ladies and gentlemen, so if those coming in the door can find themselves a seat, then we'll get rolling here shortly. While we're waiting, I will introduce the candidates. First of all, on my right is Laurel Ralston, representing the Green Party. And next is Norm Macdonald, representing the NDP. No, McFarland. Oh, it's going to be a bad night. Sorry, Norm Macdonald, NDP candidate. And next we have Earl Olsen from the Conservative Party. And last, Doug Clovechok from the Liberal Party. Thank you. So you all may be seated. I'll just run through the first of all, thank the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this evening tonight and making this opportunity for us to hear from the candidates. And I thank all of you for coming to hear what there is to be said. A number of the rules are, first of all, that we've already drawn a speaking order, and the first speaker will be Earl Olsen, the second will be Norm Macdonald, third Doug Clovechok, and fourth Laurel Ralston. The speakers each have a 5-minute introductory comments to make, and at the end they have another 5 minutes of closing remarks, and they will be in the same order as they started. I asked other candidates will not interrupt a given candidate when that candidate is speaking. During the question and answer period, there will be questions from the floor. We have a mic here. There also were a number of forms, I think, at the desk coming in that you can write a question out and have it read out if you prefer not to use the mic yourself. And we also have a roving mic that will be, there it is, way back there. It's important that people not use the opportunity to express a lot of opinions. It's certainly understood that some questions need a little preamble so there's understanding of what the nature of the question is. But we do ask that people not grandstand with opinions rather than straightforward asking a question. As far as the questions are concerned, they're limited to one person. One person can only have one question, unless it turns out that we don't have a lot of questions, and then we could entertain seconds later. But I would expect that one question per person from the floor will be all we can handle. The questions from the floor will be answered by all the candidates if they wish. Some may elect not to answer given questions, but they all have an opportunity to answer the questions. Their answers are supposed to be limited to 2 to 3 minutes, and certainly 3 minutes will be absolute limit. So without further ado, we will turn the mic over to Earl Olsen, who speaks on behalf of the Conservative Party.
Can everybody hear me? Everybody good? Okay, I'm Earl Olsen, and I'm here running for the BC Conservatives. I'm from Fairmont, Hot Springs. I have a wife and 3 children and 5 grandchildren. I have been employed in the private sector, government, university, industries, own my own company. I believe that the party I represent gives us the best opportunity to change where we're going. Right now, the status quo, the existing parties all want to borrow more money, they want to deficit some more, they all want to raise taxes, and I don't believe we want more taxes. I certainly don't believe we want to pay more taxes, and I don't believe we want our kids to pay more taxes. And if we don't do something to change what we're doing today, then when you look at the future, I lived through the 70s and the 80s, and I saw the wonderful impact of 22% interest rates. If we get a spike in interest rates, we won't be doing anything more than paying off debt and trying to fund healthcare. So as an individual, I think that's a huge issue. I believe that the Conservative Party represents fair taxation, less taxation, less government, better support for small business, and ultimately a far better place for all of us. If we continue down the road we're on, we're just simply going to see an erosion of all of our discretionary spending. The seniors that are in the room here, most of us are reaching that age. There's a great big boom of us going through. I don't believe that that's what any of us want, is to be literally unable to be getting the health care, the access to health care. Those are all things that have to be reviewed by government. And right now, in my mind, what I'm seeing in British Columbia is we're heading to a cliff. There's simply no way to stop the spending if we keep taxing and keep spending. And if we keep taxing and spending, the very people who are generating the income, the business and the jobs for probably 80%, 90% of the people in this room, the small businesses, the corner gas stations, that's a huge issue. So the reason I'm running, the reason I decided to take up this challenge is because I talk to a lot of people. I'm a volunteer fireman, first responder, talk to a lot of folks down in Fairmont, meet a lot of people, and every one of them has, it's a litany that goes right across the riding right now, it seems. All of our kids are leaving and going elsewhere for work. They can't stay here. There's no future. They can't buy a house here. How the hell do you buy a house for $10 an hour and it's $350,000 for the house? It's not possible to do it. So the kids leave. And I'm in the same boat. I got 2 kids up in Fort Mac right now making, really good money, but they're away from their family for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. The one is in a camp where they've now gone to a 6-day on and 1 day off structure. Well, that's absurd. You can't live like that. You can't raise your family like that. What kind of home life do you have? So I believe that the biggest issue we face and the biggest issue we have to overcome is how do we create jobs? How do we make meaningful work with a positive economy in this riding and across the province? It's not just here. And the way we're going right now, the Invermere School District has dropped enrollment 2 years in a row. We're losing our young people and young families because they leave because they can't make a decent living here. So if we don't do something, if we don't do something here now, if we don't change what we're doing, and change always comes with risk, I understand that, but at this point in our lives, to not take the risk, not take the decision to make a change, to return to what we've done, we've got 20 years of government by the NDP and Liberal government, and all they've done is spend us further and further into debt. In 1971, this province was the leader in Canada for weekly wages. In 1991, we were 3rd. In 2011, we're 5th. It is no longer a high-wage province. It is no longer where people want to come. We're losing people. The only growth, the real population growth we're really getting is in the lower mainland, and most of that is new immigrants. We're importing workers. We've got 2,000 Chinese workers coming in to mine coal when, let's face it, we must have coal miners in this province. Why are we bringing in workers? We're not training people in the trades we need, the education system. We need to get jobs that match the training and training that matches the jobs. So I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to close this with that. I'd like your support. I'd like you to think about what we offer. Check our website, call me. I'm wide open to dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. Our next speaker is Doug Clovechok, representing the... I'm sorry. God, such a bad day. First of all, I got to apologize to you. Sorry about that. Anyway, you're the second speaker, Norm Macdonald, NDP.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming out. It is a beautiful Earth Day. I don't think we could have had a finer reminder of what's special about this area, what's special about this province. Almost all of the land that you see is almost uniquely to British Columbia, owned by all British Columbians. And that means we have a responsibility for looking after it. Now, what I want to talk about first is just the experience that I bring as a candidate for the New Democrats. I came in 1982 to this area. I came and worked at a ski hill. I met my wife, Karen, in 1982. We have worked in other parts of the world, but most of our time has been spent in the Columbia Valley, working as a teacher and as a principal. We also spent 6 years in Africa. My elected experience begins in local government. I worked as a councillor on Golden Council back in 1993, and then in 1996 I became mayor of Golden. Now in 2005 I entered provincial politics. I ran here. We had a Liberal MLA, and there was a tremendous dissatisfaction with what was going on at that time. And I told people at that time exactly what I would do as the MLA, and most people understood that they were electing at that time an MLA that was going to be an opposition member. People understood that, I think, again in 2009. So what I was telling people is that I would work and be on the side of the community as we fought to make decisions here locally. And we fought for the values that we have as communities in rural British Columbia, to see that those values are reflected in what a provincial government does. Now 2013, it's a different election, and it means that I'll be doing something slightly different, I think, than the other candidates. People have, especially since 2009, looked at what has happened in the province, what the provincial government has done, the BC Liberals have done, and I think it's fair to say that given an opportunity every 4 years to set a standard for government, most British Columbians are not going to say that it was acceptable what happened from 2009 to 2013, that was acceptable as a standard for government here in British Columbia. We had the HST, which the BC Liberals said was the most important thing they could do for the economy. They said that after the election. Before the election, they'd said that they would not introduce the HST. So a disaster going in, a disaster going out. On top of that, we were promised, guaranteed that the deficit in 2009 would be $495 million. It was over $2 billion. The Premier had to know that. So you have a standard from 2009 on that is simply not acceptable, and I think most of us understand it's a government that's on its way out. So what I want to do here with you is to be very clear in exactly what I will do, presuming that there is going to be an NDP government. So I want to be very clear on the specifics. What we intend to do, how we intend to pay for it. The fiscal framework, everything fits in, is like this. There is a deficit now, with what the BC Liberals presented in their budget, of about $800 million. We can have, I guess, a debate during the pre-election period about whether that's the case or not, but I can tell you when the books are put together, it'll be about $800 million. There's three ways that the government has used the books to try to present a picture of it being something different than it is. They used deferral accounts in BC Hydro that the Auditor General has said you shouldn't use. Basically, BC Hydro has borrowed money under government instructions. They have put it into deferral accounts so that it shows up as profit, and then the profit is being paid as a dividend to government. And they've booked as revenue $400 million that is not real. It's not there. As well, they're booking as revenue property they have yet to sell and yet to identify. Again, the Auditor General says you shouldn't do that. And they have also severely underestimated the growth that will come in healthcare. So that is the fiscal situation with the deficit. You have to remember, with debt, we have moved from $33 billion in 2001 up to $55 billion in debt, plus an additional $11 billion to come in the next 3 years. On top of that, there's $96 billion in contractual obligations. So that's the fiscal framework that you should bear in mind as we go through tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norm. And our next speaker is Doug Clovechok.
Well, thank you very much, and I've been in Revelstoke now for 7 days, and I just want to tell you how much I've enjoyed your city, and the hospitality has been wonderful. You guys like to have fun. I went to the East Indian function the other day, the Taste of India, and it was amazing. And throughout the experience that we've had so far, out in door knocking, I think there's maybe about 12 or 15, Kyle would know, of you that aren't going to vote for me, but we still will try to get you there. That's the but, in any event, just very, very quickly, I do want to talk a little bit about my background and why I'm a legitimate candidate here. I've not run for a political office before in terms of the province, but I've had a lot of experience. I've been a high school teacher. I've been an educational administrator. I was the director of operations for Western and Eastern Canada for Princess Tours, which is a subsidiary of Princess Cruises. Where all of our land work would hook up with our ships on our way to Alaska. So I've had lots of experience in tourism, lots of experience in education, both at the high school level, K-12 level, and also at the college level, where I'm right now the general manager of a campus. I've got an enormous amount of First Nations background. I've worked very, very closely all of my life with First Nations communities, mostly in Alberta. I'm a member of the Weasel Traveler family of the Town Nation, and an honorary chief of that nation, which is a designation that I was given for leadership. And I share that designation with people like the late Ralph Klein, who also was awarded that as well. So I do have a lot of experience. If you don't think sitting at a boardroom table, a corporate boardroom table, that's not political, or sitting at a First Nations boardroom table is very political. So I've certainly had that experience. I'm married my wife Susan, who's here today supporting me, and grew up, and I've got 3 kids and an amazing little granddaughter who's going to be 4, and 2 more on the way. So it's going to be an exciting time. But what I'm really want to stress in my opening here tonight is, and I disagree with my opponent, and that should come as no surprise to anybody. I think we're in a place right now where there's such a bright future ahead of us, an incredibly bright future ahead of us. And although you may hear my opponent paint BC Liberals as this demonic type of entity, we've done some amazing things, and I hope to outline those amazing things here for you tonight and remind you how much Revelstoke, even though you didn't have a sitting MLA in government, how much Revelstoke has benefited from guys like George Abbott literally taking care of this riding for you. So one of the things I really want to underscore, and I'm going to refer to this right now, we're the party that actually has a plan. This is our platform. It was released by the Premier a week ago, and it's a costed plan. It has a balanced budget associated with that plan, and it has we do have a deficit. We survived, ladies and gentlemen, 2008, which was one of the worst disasters in economic history. The Americans almost went under, and you know that. But we have a costed platform that will take us into the future, and we can tell you exactly how we're going to pay for it. My opponent's party promised one prior to the election. Promised it. His leader promised it. We still have what I call a PowerPoint platform, slide by slide, one slide at a time. So I challenged Mr. Macdonald the other day to come clean to the people of British Columbia and say, this is what our plan looks like. $2.2 billion Adrian Dix has said he's going to spend, with no explanation as how he's going to pay for it. How are you going to pay for it? We have a plan. It's costed. And we have a balanced budget. Now let's talk a little bit about that balanced budget. People will say that it's not balanced. Well, we've had some people that look at our budget. We have a AAA credit rating. AAA credit rating. Moody's has evaluated private entity. When Moody's sneezes, the Americans get antsy, the British get antsy, the Germans get antsy, because if there is a downgrade by Moody's, the economy starts to fail in any country. Our budget, our plan, has indeed been evaluated by Moody's. We have a AAA credit rating. They say this is a responsible budget. They say this is a responsible plan. We have one of the lowest debt ratios in any province, and it's a manageable. TD Bank just came out with that today. This is one of the most manageable debts anywhere in Canada.
Time to.
Okay, anyways, talk to you.
Thank you, Doug. Our fourth speaker is Laurel Ralston, representing the Green Party.
Hi, everyone. I need my notes, or else I'm going to forget to remind you what my name is, which is Laurel Ralston. I hail from Kimberley, BC. I came out last night on the Greyhound. It was a great 6-hour ride, and as I was sitting on the bus, hunched over my Green Party platform trying to memorize things, I do not have a memory for facts. I'm more of a process, structural thinker, but I was getting super excited about being a part of this process, and let me tell you, it hasn't been a disappointment. This has been just great. I've spent the day in Revelstoke getting to know people. I've had locals showing me around that I didn't even know, that I just met this morning, and that wasn't really the plan. And I'm in love with your city, let me tell you. Anyway, so I'm just glad to be a part of this process, and thank you everybody for making yourselves a part of this process as well, because it's so important for the health of our democracy and the health of our province that people take the time to educate themselves about what's going on, that they learn about the candidates and learn about the differences in the policies. So I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit. Like I say, I live in Kimberley right now. I've been there for 7 years, almost 7 years, and like so many people I know there, I followed a boy there. We're not together anymore, but I'm still in the town because I fell in love with it too, and it's really it's really grown on me. I work there as a musician. I'm a professional trumpet player and choral conductor. I conducted church choir and the community band, and I worked as a choral accompanist and piano at the high school. And I play the flute and I freelance, and sometimes I wear a gold catsuit and a robot head with one of the bands that I play with. So it's an eclectic sort of career on that side. And then on the other side, I'm also a freelance writer, self-employed. I'm sort of fully self-employed at this point. Previous to that, I worked with WildSite, which you may have heard of. It's our environmental NGO up in Kimberley. I worked with the regional organization there for 3 years as their outreach coordinator, so helping to just administer programs, which was a really great way to get in touch with the community and start to get in touch with some of the other communities around the East Kootenays as well, where we run programs and where we contribute to discussions on local issues. So why am I here? Why am I running? Well, first of all, the Green Party's values are very, very near and dear to my heart. The one that sold me on running in selection was that very top of their list and their platform is participatory democracy, and that's something that I feel like we're in a bit of a crisis around in the country and also in the province. That voter turnout keeps going down. People are feeling disengaged. They're feeling like they can talk to politicians, but they're not necessarily going to be heard, or their comments are not necessarily going to be received well or acted upon. And it's really important that we restore faith in that, and that we find a way to make our system more representational. The Green Party is in favor of democratic reform, of changing the way that we vote, the way that we elect our representatives, so that we have more of a proportional representation here, and I think that's really important. We're also very much in favor of open dialogue, of having regional discussions, and then having the regional discussions trickle up and inform the policies at the provincial level. And so you'll probably hear me talk about that later on, about creations of regional boards and entrenching mechanisms for local input. I wanted to touch on, because of course money is going to come up as well, the Green Party is very much in favor of a return to balanced budgets. And I wanted also to touch on, see, this is why I have notes, to touch on the idea of meaningful work that Earl brought up. because a lot of what is going into the Green Party's platform, what has really appealed to me about the Green Party is that it takes a very holistic and structural approach to governance across the province. It says we need to look at the systemic problems, we need to find efficiencies in the whole system and figure out how to do all of what we're doing, not all what we need to do, but really efficiently. It's a principle of minimizing waste at an environmental level, of course, but minimizing waste also at an operational level in terms of money, and really do the very best we can with what we have in all aspects. And that means environmental resources, it means money, it means people, making the best of the people that we have in this province, because we have so much skill and so much great thought and so much innovation. In advanced technology, we have great knowledge in natural resource management and process, and it's a matter of really maximizing the very best that we have and making and using all of that to make this province the best that it really can be. So I think that the Green Party is a voice that really needs to be heard in this, at the provincial level, and I hope